I've set up over 1,000 Swiss bank accounts for clients in the past 34 years. I'm the CEO of Lawyers Limited Law Firm and Asset Protection Planners. We protect clients' assets from lawsuits. And I'm going to tell you the truth about Swiss banking. And we'll cover some of the common misconceptions, why Swiss banks are still among the safest and most private in the world, in spite of what you may have seen on the news, and how Swiss banks handle illegal activity like tax evasion, money laundering, etc., in spite of what you might have seen on James Bond movies. So let's talk about common misconceptions about Swiss banking. Number one, Swiss banks are no longer private. Reality is, Swiss banks still offer the strongest financial privacy for law-abiding clients. Their laws are still robust with privacy statutes. It's a criminal offense for a Swiss banker to reveal the name of an account holder. They can go to jail for it. So it's still private. Now, while they do comply with international regulations, client data is not public, and your information is only shared with tax authorities if you're from a country with a tax treaty, or if you're engaging in illegal activity. Now, private banking in Switzerland still offers high discretion and higher discretion than the U.S. or European banks. Now, some of the things we may have seen in the news, I don't know, maybe within the last 5-10 years or so, there was a guy who was American, and he was working for a Swiss bank, and he went and he was helping U.S. people evade taxes. And this is part of the Credit Suisse debacle, and that really hurt them financially because they got pretty much fined out of existence. So what happened in that case is, first of all, the guy was doing illegal things. I mean, it's just not worth it to try to evade taxes or hide from the tax authorities. It's not a way to live. It's hard to sleep at night. You're always looking over your shoulder, worried, can send somebody to jail. It's just not worth it. It's not. And so we don't set up accounts in Switzerland for people that want to engage in tax evasion. It's not worth it. We can't do it because it would get us in trouble and the client would get in trouble. So we do it mainly for asset protection purposes, or people just want a safe place to put their money. And so we house it inside of like an international asset protection trust. So anyway, the key thing is the privacy is still in place, but they're not going to help people evade taxes. For U.S. people, the Swiss banks do report for tax purposes. So, and naturally, there are privacy laws that the IRS doesn't, make your information known to the public, or how much you have or how much you make. So you still have the privacy. Myth number two, the U.S. or other government or lawsuits can just seize your Swiss bank account. The reality is, Swiss banks do not allow frivolous asset seizures. Now, here's the thing. In the previous case we just talked about, these banks also had U.S. branches. So when we set up an account in Switzerland for asset protection purposes, we make sure that bank doesn't have a corresponding U.S. branch like UBS and Credit Suisse did back when these this is kind of made big news. And so what we do is we set up we have some very, very good, strong, safe banks that we work with that have been around like 200, 300 years. I mean, these are old banks. And we have the account housed in an international trust. It's the key thing is, if they do have a corresponding U.S. branch, what happens is the courts will say, okay, local U.S. branch of this Swiss bank, we're going to fine you $1 million a day until you cough up the information over there. So if somebody sues you and gets a lawsuit, they can pressure the local branch to give up information in the Swiss branch, and they don't really have a their financial choice but to cough up the information. So that's why we use banks without corresponding U.S. branches. So continuing with our second misconception, Swiss banks do not allow frivolous asset seizures. Only valid legal claims through the proper court proceedings can impact an account. So like we said, many high net worth individuals open Swiss bank accounts inside of a Cook Islands trust for additional legal protection. So U.S. courts, they give you the money. Our law firm / trustee that serves as trustee of the trust says, sorry, you don't have jurisdiction in the Cook Islands. We don't need to comply with your court orders. So you have asset protection in a tool that's designed as the strongest tool in the world, an international asset protection trust. and you have some of the strongest, safest banks in the world in Switzerland, so you have the best of both worlds. Myth number 3, Swiss banks are only for the ultra wealthy. Now, many Swiss banks allow deposits with as little as 100,000. Most of the money managers we work with, they have minimum balances of 500,000 to $1 million. But keep in mind, now somebody lives in Switzerland, of course, and they just want to have a checking account to pay bills. That's another story. But we're talking about the pain of them, or the scrutiny and the regulations they have to comply with to open up an account for, say, a U.S. person. They're going to need a higher deposit than just a standard checking account if somebody lived there. So the Swiss banking is accessible to professionals, business owners, and high net worth individuals. It's not just for billionaires. Okay. Myth number 4, Swiss banks are a haven for tax evaders. Well, here's the reality. Switzerland no longer tolerates tax evasion. Back during World War II, you'd have a lot of the people that were being persecuted in Germany, like the Jewish community, would put their money in Switzerland just for privacy. Also, people would put their money in Switzerland to avoid taxes. No longer. That doesn't happen anymore. And so they want to make sure they don't comply with people who do tax evasion, and they want to make sure to comply with international tax reporting standards. So since 2018, Switzerland follows the international standards, and they do share information with tax authorities and other participating countries. So legal asset protection is fine, perfectly fine. Tax evasion is not. So we can help people that want to protect their assets from lawsuits, divorce, and so on, but we're not going to help them if they want to do anything illegal like not pay their taxes. So call us if you want asset protection. You can get more free information on our website, assetprotectionplanners.com, and you can get free info or reach out to us there. But it's for asset protection for people with, say, a liquid net worth of $500,000 or more, for example. So reach out, we can help. Number 5, Swiss bank accounts are completely secret and anonymous. The reality is full authority is a myth. Swiss banks do require know your customer and anti-money laundering checks. So when you open up a Swiss bank account, they need to know who you are. They need to make sure the money isn't coming from an illegal source. So we need to collect due diligence. Examples of things we need to collect when we set up a Swiss bank account for a client is, photocopy of a passport. If you don't have one, you can get one like super fast online. We need to have an original utility bill, proving your residential address. So it's kind of proof of where you live. A bank reference, like a letter from a banker saying you've had an account there. A professional reference letter, like from an attorney or accountant. We have attorneys on our staff that can, help maybe write the letters if needed for a cost. And so, and of course, an account application. So those are some of the basic pieces of information they need in addition to whatever else they need. So your information is protected from the public and from competitors, but the Swiss banks need to have a copy of this stuff. So they're following the know your client rules. Okay. So Swiss banks do cooperate with authorities on criminal investigations. So if somebody steals money and puts it in a Swiss bank account, they're going to cooperate with that. So they have privacy, but people who are doing normal legal things like you and I are hopefully doing. So that's the key thing. As long as you're doing something legal, not criminal, they're going to have sufficient capital, then we can get a Swiss bank account open for you, most likely. Number 6, it's impossible to open a Swiss bank account remotely. Well, the reality is that's what we do every day of the week. Most Swiss bank accounts allow remote opening if you pass your due diligence on to us and we make sure everything's in order. And they'll do it through intermediaries. So we're like an intermediary for many of the Swiss banks. So you go through us, we can help you get the account open. And most of the banks require that you go through an intermediary. Some banks require a personal visit for high net worth accounts, but typically they'll come visit you. You don't have to go there ever. So they do have to verify your identity through like a video call and authorized representatives. Number 7, Swiss banks are no longer safe due to global regulations. The reality is Swiss banks remain among the safest in the world with strong liquidity, solvency, and financial regulations. If you look up the safest banks in the world, you'll see some of the safest, strongest banks are in Switzerland. They just have real high capital reserves to protect client assets. And they have a lot of them are mainly money management entities. So they manage You say your stock market portfolio, help it grow. They have some of the best money managers in the world. If you want a super high return, beat the S&P 500. Many Swiss bankers can do that because they're very, very, very talented at money management. So even during global financial crises, Swiss banks maintain high capital reserves to protect clients. And then, so I know somebody's going to get in the comments and say, yeah, but Credit Suisse. Well, it's because they're doing illegal stuff and they got pretty well fined out of existence. Billions and billions of dollars fined by the U.S. government. Of course. Yeah, it happens. What happened? Boom. Swiss government came in, UBS took over, and nobody lost a dime. So yes, that happens. But it's because they were doing illegal stuff. And again, no depositor lost money. So I'd never heard of a depositor losing money in a Swiss bank account. Number 8, Swiss banks are a risky place to keep your money due to global scrutiny. Here's reality. Swiss banks are among the world's safest financial institutions. They follow conservative investment strategies, high capital reserves, strict client vetting like we talked about, and Switzerland remains a financially stable, politically neutral country with a very strong banking sector. Okay, next, why Swiss banks are still among the safest in the world? Okay, so here's the answer. Strong capitalization. That means cash reserves they hold back to make sure they can weather the storm is what that means. Strong capitalization. Swiss banks are required to hold more reserves than most global banks. Political and economic stability. Switzerland has a neutral government and strong financial law. So they didn't join the European Union. They remain independent, so they're not beholden to any other outside country other than complying with international regulations on making sure only legal money goes through the accounts. Next, risk-averse banking system. The Swiss banks avoid reckless lending and high-risk investments. And imagine, an institution, you deposit your money and they pick the proper, investments to have your money in, different stocks, bonds, or gold, or whatever you want. And so where's the risk? Because they're not lending it out to somebody who could maybe not pay it back and now they don't have any money. They don't do that. That's not the type of activity in which they participate in a large scale. So very, very safe. In fact, if you look at the 50 safest banks in the world, as of the last check, out of the top 50, the U.S. only has one bank on the list, and it's down number 42 or something like that. So if somebody thinks, oh, the only safe banks are the U.S. banks, opposite. No, the strongest, safest banks are outside the U.S. It's like people say, offshore banks, risky. Offshore banking's risky. No, U.S. banking's risky compared to many of the offshore banks. Look at this. Look at the data instead of just trusting your gut. Yeah, but it's backed by the U.S. government. Okay, so you're talking about banks that are backed by the most in-debt government in the entire world. How's that feel? Then they say with the banking reserve system, just 2 big banking failures and it'll go broke. So yeah, there are safeguards in the U.S. There are greater safeguards in Switzerland and the U.S. They're safer banks, frankly. Look at the data. Okay, so next, strong privacy protections. While Swiss banks do comply with international regulations, they maintain discretion for legitimate clients. Okay, asset protection benefits. When combined with the Cook Islands Trust, and like I probably said, we've set up more Cook Islands Trusts than any firm in the entire world. I've been in the asset protection industry for 34 years. Almost 30 of those I've been setting up Cook Islands Trusts. And Swiss bank accounts offer elite level lawsuit protection when combined with the right tool. If you just have the account in your name, it's not going to have the protection because a U.S. court can say, okay, turn over the money since you're in control, but we can have our trustee run interference for you, and U.S. courts don't have jurisdiction over our offshore trustee law firm that serves as your trustee. So that's how it works, combining the two. Swiss bank account for super safe and Cook Islands Trust for super protected. Now, the next thing is, that's just for laundering money and illegal stuff and tax evasion, blah, blah, blah. So here's how the Swiss banks handle illegal activity, tax evasion, money laundering, etc. So here's what they do. First of all, Swiss banks do not protect criminals. They follow the AML or anti-money laundering laws and the OECD tax compliance standards. So OECD is a group based in Paris, France. A whole bunch of countries, officials from various countries come together to decide how banks should be regulated worldwide. So there's kind of a common regulatory framework to keep out bad guys, keep out money laundering, keep out the terrorist money and the drug money, that kind of stuff. So they agree on what needs to happen. Part of that is providing the due diligence. Next, No protection for tax evasion. Banks report suspicious activity and you refuse to open accounts for tax cheats. Okay, so no protection for tax evaders. That's a crime. In the U.S., that's a crime. So they're not going to help people commit crimes. Next, strict compliance screening. Clients must provide legitimate sources of funds and pass due diligence checks. So they say, okay, where is the source of funds? Well, I did it because I was selling real estate. Okay, show me the real estate contract where you sold it. Show me the deposit from the escrow company, blah, blah, blah. So that way it's a proven source of funds, not just accepting somebody's word. No banking for sanctioned individuals. Switzerland enforces global sanctions and blacklists, so they're not going to open accounts for known bad guys. So, conclusion, to cap it off here, Swiss banks still offer unmatched financial security, privacy, and asset protection for law-abiding clients. They provide world-class financial safety with high capital reserves and conservative banking practices. That's why they're trusted. They have strong privacy protection while fully complying with international regulations. They're going to report the income to the tax authorities so that you're paying your taxes. But they're not going to provide the information to somebody suing you, for example. And which brings us to the next point, powerful asset protection strategy when paired with an offshore trust like a Cook Islands trust. However, Swiss banks will not assist criminals, tax evaders, or money launderers. They uphold strict compliance and only work with legitimate clients. So that's my conclusion after setting up helping our team helping clients set up 1,000+ Swiss bank accounts, and with the experience for the past several decades in this industry, that's how Swiss banks work, and that hopefully that clears up some of the myths. So if you appreciate this info, please click the like button and help me out. And I'd love to see you again. So click subscribe. Let's join our community, and we'll hope to see you in the next video. This is the Business Guy.